If you're trans, you're probably familiar with the term masking. Masking is, at least from my experience, what I did pre-transition was a way of protecting the inside me from the outside. I created a mask that, in effect, protected Victoria, and that mask was Victor. That's my dead name. Um, and so what does it look like? And is it the same thing for everybody? Of course, it's not. But there are so many similarities between the masks. My mask was, I was very good at analyzing people, and I was able to mimic boy behaviors. Like, for example, I would go on the sports network and I would check out the sports every day just really quickly, just so I had some basic knowledge about what was happening in the world of sports. Um, I would work out for another thing, and I would create this very masculine looking body at the time. And again, it was kind of like a shield of protection. Um, I had a real hard time with clothes pre-transition. I pretty much wore the exact same thing every single day: a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. The t-shirt always changed. It was very bland, very boring, and a pair of jeans. And that was pretty much my fashion for 40 some odd years. And now I love fashion. So, that part of unmasking was really, it really kind of goes to show how once I became unmasked and became my true authentic self, how, that unmasking part, I started changing as a person. So, what is it like to start unmasking? It's such a terrifying thing because you all of a sudden there's vulnerability in that unmasking, obviously, because when I wore that mask, I was invulnerable. It didn't matter what people's opinion was about the mask. It wasn't really me anyways. So it's kind of an invulnerability in that way. The only thing I cared about was that people didn't see the inside me. And so as long as the outside me was presenting male and had all of these masculine traits and personalities and all of this stuff, as long as that was there, I was protected um, from from attacks, I guess, from the inside person. And I guess that made me a bit invulnerable. You know, there's so many tropes with trans girls. They were in the military. They were bodybuilders. They were UFC fighters, into sports, professional athletes. There's just so many coders, as so many of the trans girls these days seems to be are. Even though I have no idea how to do technology at all. So these masks that we wear, that we were wearing pre-transition, and we start taking the masks off. And one of the hardest parts of transitioning is this unmasking, because these were things that kept us safe for such a long time. And because they kept us safe, when we start shedding those layers, kind of like an onion, and we start taking off that external shell, um, what we have on the inside is that vulnerable piece. And that is so scary. So I have a lot of clients that help with this kind of thing. And one of the things that is really challenging for some people is letting go of that mask. Because for some of us, that mask was the thing that kept us safe for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and it is so ingrained in even how we perceive ourselves, and doesn't necessarily mean that that mask is part of self. It's just that we got used to it. We got used to it protecting us, and letting go of the mask sometimes is the hardest part of transitioning. It's not the self love. It's not the acceptance. It's not the even realizing that we are trans. For some of us, it is letting go of that safety net and of that mask because we worry for, how people will perceive us, how people will people love the real person. And that part is so incredibly scary for so many of us. Um, and I think the hardest part of a mask is differentiating between the authentic person and the mask. And sometimes those things are kind of intertwined. They're not black and white. It's a whole collection of the rainbow, right? And we don't know necessarily whether something is actually part of us or part of the mask that we used to wear. Like, for example, with myself, I've always loved the gym. But at the same time, the gym was also part of my mask. So I used it. I trained differently, of course, and I had a different body and all of this stuff. But I used the gym as a way of masking the internal person. And now I've let go of that part of it, but I kept the working out and I kept the healthy lifestyle. Um, I would have said before that I wanted to look like Superman. And there was actually a funny story as a side quest here. I remember I was pre-transition and I was like jacked and all this stuff. And this little boy walked up to me and he was with his dad. He was holding his dad's hand and he pointed up at me and he's like, "Daddy, Superman." And I remember how much that was like a knife through the heart in comparison. And now I was at Comic Con a couple of years ago and I dressed as Wonder Woman. And when that little girl looked at me and she said Wonder Woman, I was like, my heart just exploded with love. And that that change, that little thing, and that makes such a huge difference to me because one really validated me as the person I am, and that other one, pre-transition, I was like, oh no, I succeeded in fully burying this person that I know I am. And so unmasking is so much less about holding on tight and so much more about letting go. And that is letting go of the thing that held us and kept us safe and not holding on to that old mask because that old mask kept us safe, but it's not where true peace kind of lives. So, yeah, it's it's a very complex, but at the same time, pretty simple concept. Letting go of the mask and kind of stepping into authenticity always lends itself to real joy and love and happiness and peace. And sometimes it feels like you're stepping away from safety, but it is a safety of a falseness, and so much better to step into the authenticity of realness and vulnerability, and that's where true happiness kind of rides. Anyways, love you all.